I I felt confident going into it because I'm not afraid to speak in front of people and I teach. So I had that confidence heading in, but pretty soon before I had to do it, the heart rate goes up, getting a little dry mouth, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to actually do this right now. And of course I was like, no, you go next. You go first. I'll go next, right in the small group.
I remember the first time on live classes, you're like, "All right, guys, today we're not teaching today, but next week we are." And for the whole week, I'm like, "Oh no, we're teaching next week." And then next week came, and you're like, "All right, guys, today we're teaching. I'm gonna tell you what to teach." And I'm like, "This is gonna be awful. Like I'm gonna do awful."
When you're doing a teacher training program, it's you. It's your process, it's your journey, it's your development. It's not about the others, but there are others and they're going through their own process, and therefore you have community. To me, it's this beautiful thing of autonomy, independence, and connection. And so I wanted to understand right off the bat how these students felt about their peers. Like, what was their first impression? And did that jive with what they anticipated? I also wanted to know how they felt, how they started to internalize the idea and the process of doing some group teaching. Okay, you said yes, you joined. Now you're dealing with the reality of this 1 a.m. decision.
Yeah.
What's happening within you, and what are your impressions of the group?
I was going through like the really intro stuff and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Like I'm gonna learn all these things. This is so cool." And then when I got to the live part, I was like, "Oh man, I feel like I'm so underqualified to be in this room because I actually didn't know. Like you said, most people like practice for 1 to 3 years before they become. I thought most people were like me and like we're practicing for like 9 years and then we're like, might as well, you know? So I came in being like, oh man, they're probably all way more seasoned than I am. I'm gonna ask all these questions and I'm gonna look stupid. Like there was really a lot, like, because I didn't know anybody, right? And I didn't know how like supportive and how similar all of our experiences would end up being.
First and foremost, everyone was always so kind and generous with each other. I mean, please.
My first impressions were, wow, this is an impressive group of people. And we're from all over the world. So, you've got it's nighttime for me and, in Germany or Ireland and well, I'll just say I was just impressed with how excited everyone was to be there, but also how accomplished they were and how much I immediately felt like, wow, this is a really cool group to be a part of.
I thought people were gonna be doing splits and like insane stuff.
So pretty quickly on, you realize, like, I have not joined the Canadian Olympic gymnastics team. I've joined a
Yeah.
broad cross section of the population that's just trying to be well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Because yeah, I was like, oh man, all these people are gonna be like running circles around me. Yeah, that's not it at all.
Years ago, when I made the transition from teaching primarily in person to primarily online trainings, I knew I could replicate the education just fine. I knew that I could recreate the quality of education that I had done in person in an online environment. But what I didn't know is whether or not it would still feel like a training, whether or not I could help, or whether or not the students alone would connect, form relationships, form bonds. The relationship between peers in teaching communities is incredibly valuable. And I had that myself in in-person trainings, and I wanted to make sure that people still had access to it in online trainings. And so to hear everybody connect, to respect their peers, to hear how nice and warm and community oriented the peers are, made so much difference to me. So now they've met their group, they've shared their first impressions, they're starting to interact with me and each other in the live sessions, and it's time for that fateful moment, their first experience as peer teaching.
I remember the first time on live classes, you're like, all right, guys, today we're not teaching today, but next week we are. And for the whole week, I'm like, oh no, we're teaching next week. And then next week came, and you're like, all right, guys, today we're teaching. I'm gonna tell you what to teach. And I'm like, this is gonna be awful. Like I'm gonna do awful. And so it's interesting because the first time we did that, I was like, okay, like I did it, and like honestly, I actually did better than I thought I would for the first time ever teaching a sun salutation, because it's very different doing it than telling someone what to do, right? And so after that first time, I was like, oh, maybe I can do this. And then the second time we taught, like the next week, I was like, oh, this went way better than the week before. Like, okay, maybe it's okay that I'm here. Like maybe I got this. Maybe I have the skills to do it, right?
And do you remember what you did in that first peer teaching session?
Didn't we just do half sun
Yes.
salutations? Like
Yes.
two or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what you did. How did it feel to start giving cues? And did you feel comfortable, or was there this dissonance between what your body knew and what you could verbally communicate?
I I felt confident going into it because I'm not afraid to speak in front of people and I teach. So I had that confidence heading in, but pretty soon before I had to do it, the heart rate goes up, getting a little dry mouth, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have to actually do this right now." And of course, I was like, "No, you go next. You go first. I'll go next," right in the small group. But then it takes you learn from somebody else and they're not perfect and you go, okay, it's okay. It's okay that I'm not going to be perfect. That first one was really nerve-wracking, but it was literally a half sun salutation, right?
Yep.
Like up, so but getting that down and getting the nerves out at that point made a huge difference. And in talking to someone who did an in-person 200 hour and kind of just telling them about my online experience, she had said, well, we didn't teach until like the very, very end. We just never taught. And they said, oh, go teach a whole 60-minute class, right? And so she was kind of shocked, like, wow, you're learning to teach already. And that made me feel good. And I went, yeah, I am. So, but doing that in that first or second session and then consistently building on that every week was huge.
What was it like for you to try to get yoga based words out of your mouth?
So, so very difficult. And I also found that I had to physically do the movement to come up with the words. And that surprised me. I thought, because I love how you would, and eventually I'm getting there, but you can kind of sit and look and instruct and correct. And that's the kind of teacher I want to be. But right now, and back then initially, I could not instruct unless I was doing the movement.
One of the
Hmm.
things that I find really interesting and fascinating, and to be honest, frustrating, is when you know something in your body, but you don't know how to express it.
I remember the first time we taught bow in it was one of the later things, and I was like, this is the first time I'm teaching it while being in it, and I know what to do, but my brain was like, there is sensory things happening. What do I say? Like, I know I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z, like push your foot into your hand into your foot, but like saying it while you're doing the sensor, it's like you have to do it a couple times and be like, oh, okay, this is the way I want to say it. Like there would be even times where I was just by myself, like when I was prepping for my first class, where I would just say the thing out loud and be like, I don't like the way that sounds. I'm gonna re-say it a different way, like simpler, right?
All of these first moments of teaching are not about being correct. They're not about being good. They're not even about being accurate. I tell my students right off the bat, I don't care about your technique at all. Do not be worried about teaching things correctly. This right now is just about you. It's about the humanness. It's about the human experience of communicating and connecting to others. That's it. And the sooner that we start to do this, the sooner that we get through the anxiety, the sooner that we start to get over even the fantasy that we're going to matriculate and be a perfect teacher, the better. And also, the more we're going to continue what we've already started to see, which is group connection, group bonding, and personal development. Before we go further with Raquel and Laurel and Aaron, I want to give you a tiny bit of context. This training that the students are in is online. That's clear. We've already talked about this. There are live interactive components, but there's also a lot of pre-recorded content. So the training combines both. It's all online, but there's several different subject matters that the students are doing on their own, And then we have our in-person sessions. And this is the way that we get the most out of an online experience. We have the independence, the time, the space to do our recorded content in our own life, but we also show up weekly, connect to others, ask questions, get answers, get feedback on our practice, and also, as we're clearly talking about, get experience teaching. So in addition to understanding early on what their experience with the group and peer teaching was like and why they were so connected and committed to this practice, I also wanted to hear whether or not they were resonating with any of the recorded content and what was standing out for them.
I honestly think I kind of embraced every different topic we went into because from the poses in the very beginning, breaking down what you really need to be doing in Warrior 2, just fundamentals and technical specifics. I just kind of lapped up and remember thinking, I gotta go back and watch all these again. I love the philosophy piece. I'm telling you, I'm sitting here looking at the ocean thinking, each of those waves thinks it's a life, but it's just crashing back into the ocean, right? Like I explained that to my mom and my husband the other day, just sitting out there. So I loved all of that. I loved the way that you presented the timeline in the manual. Like that was really, really helpful to be able to go through and make notes in all of that.
So the first was anatomy because I do powerlifting, and like the moment I started doing anatomy is the moment I started being like, oh man, when I'm doing this thing for my training, it's like I'm using these muscles now. That actually made it less scary because I was scared of the anatomy part because I'm horrible at memorization, but it's not about that. It's really about like, what does this muscle in your thigh do and what is it primarily used for, right? And those things helped me like both in yoga and in lifting. And so that was like invaluable. Once I started really getting into it, I'm like, oh man, like I didn't even know the shoulders were the way they were until I went through that part of the anatomy course, and it like blew my mind. I had to like watch it twice because I'm like, I'm sorry, the shoulders do what? Like the shoulder blades are just like gliding, having a great time. Like it was weird. Like I never thought of it that way because I never saw it that way. And then once I saw it that way, I'm like, so many more things in my practice make sense now. And then the other thing that I really liked too, and I don't know if this was the same for everyone, but I love the philosophy part of the course because that is the one area that I feel like I didn't do a lot of in any of the workshops I did or whatever. And like my teachers kind of embodied it in the way they said things. And like that's also what kept me curious about the practice, but can kind of understand people a little better and maybe be a little bit more forgiving as to why someone would like do something versus before. So like those are the two things that I was like, this is amazing. I really love it.
But I didn't find it. I thought it was all great. I love the fact that there aren't many videos that are longer than the time of each video is perfect. It's just a nice, like, I can go focus and learn. I can step away if I need to, or I can commit to another module.
So it's all happening. They're studying anatomy, philosophy, injury management, technique. They're also getting to know each other. They're getting to connect more directly with me and get feedback. And clearly, they're getting their feet wet when it comes to peer teaching. But now I want to see, how is this practice affecting their personal practice? So many people do trainings because they want to know more about the practice and they want their own personal development. So I want to see, how is this affecting their practice and how are they going to continue to evolve as teachers to feel more and more confident, not just with teaching each other, but how are they going to start to build the confidence to step into the role of teaching the public eventually?
As we progressed, I feel like people were less fearful of making mistakes. But I think it took 3, 4, 5 sessions of us being together to be able to come in. And then I wasn't the first one always having to go. People would come in and be like, hey, I'd like to go first. And be like, okay, yay, sounds great. They're the group's evolution and the group's confidence. People were so loving and helpful and supportive of each other. It was really surprising. I don't feel like there was ever any ego in the breakout rooms, ever.